All right, so you have OLED. You bought an OLED, and you're like wondering, you're freaking out. Oh man, but what am I gonna do if I get a permanent retention? Permanent retention. What am I gonna do if I get a permanent retention? Now, what are we talking about? Let's first do one step at a time on this video. Let's learn something one step at a time. What is retention? Retention is the side effect that happens, in basic terms, it's a side effect that happens on your OLED TV when you have a static imagery. What do we mean by static? What does the word static means? Static means stationary. It doesn't move, it stays there. Like right now, you see this image where it says MSNBC? This is static. It is stationary. You see a president of the United States, Donald Trump. You see the blue tape, and then on the right you see MSNBC. Now, if you are constantly watching this channel, let's say you are watching this channel 24/7, like you don't take any precautions as far as turning on the saving for a power saving. There's a power saving option which I'm going to show you here. You can turn on a power saving option, so if you're not watching and you're away from the TV, you can actually have this TV turn off by itself or put itself in the standby mode if you're not watching. Okay, well, I'm going to show you that later, but first let's learn about retention on the screen. Retention means static imagery, okay, meaning that you are watching a channel like this, blasting with the OLED light all the way to the maximum, and you have that logo and that blue tape there constantly. Another way of getting that retention is if you were watching a 2-minute loop of this segment. Like, let's say you recorded this and you put it on the loop. You put it on the loop and it's constantly looping every 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, that image will be looping with this individual, and then with the tape at the bottom and the logo of this channel. Or let's say you loop this image of this imagery right here, and then you get that same exact scene when they're walking, and it's looping the same scene over and over again, and you have the same logo. And let's say you loop this all the time. Let's say you put this video of Trump and Kim Jong-un, and let's say you're looping it constantly. That's the one way of getting that retention. But that only happens if you have your OLED light blasting to the maximum. If you have that OLED light cranked up all the way high. Okay? And you're looping the same image over and over again. So what's the best way to avoid this? The best way to avoid this, it's not by not watching this channel. The best way to avoid it is to have that OLED light move down a bit. You don't need to be blasting that OLED light when you're watching a non-HDR content. The only time you should use that OLED light all the way to the maximum is when you are watching an HDR. So OLED light and the contrast needs to be moved down a little bit. So let me show you. Look where my OLED light, it's at 80, and it's just fine. I get enough brightness that I need. I don't need to be cranking it up. Look where my contrast is. My contrast is 85. So OLED light at 80, contrast at 85, and you can see, Chris Matthews here looks fantastic. Looks better than ever. No issues. Looks great. Now let's move on to another news channel. Now the reason I'm using the news channels, it's because they're the only source of video where I'm not gonna get blocked. If I show you a sports or ESPN or something like that, I will automatically get blocked. Okay, sports, I cannot show you any sports. So for example, right here I am now on the Fox News. Doesn't matter. We're going through news channels. So same thing here. I doesn't matter which mode you use. I only use the cinema for this one example. It could be any of the presets. You know, the presets doesn't really matter when it comes to non-HDR content. You see, I put my energy savings to medium. This is another precaution you can take. Keep it at medium. Don't put it at maximum. If you put it at minimum, it's gonna be way too dimmed. I figured leaving the power savings at medium, it really helps to keep that brightness even lower. That's the one way of doing it. So keeping it at medium, keeping the energy savings at medium. Another precaution you can take, additional settings here, is the hold on, OLED panel settings. Keeping your logo lumens adjustments at high. When you do this, what basically happens is when you keep your logo lumens adjustments at high, it keeps it from being too bright. So that's what I would recommend here, to keep it at high. I have tried moving it to the low, but every time I move my logo lumens to the low, it gets brighter. So you have to, what they mean by high is to keep it more reduced. Like it says here, adjust the lumens of the static image such as logos within a content to correct potential picture quality issues. So you want to keep it at high. Keeping that logo lumens adjustment at high will reduce that static imagery. So you want to keep it at high. You also want to turn the screen shift on. Screen shift, what it does, it prevents panel noise. So that's another thing to use. Pixel refresher. Okay, guys, let's talk about the pixel refresher. The pixel refresher, it's a long process. It could take up to 15 to 20 minutes. It might take up to half an hour. So the only time you use the pixel refresher is if you feel that you have some spots on your television, that you might have some retention on your screen. That is the only time you should do that. Okay? See, this process takes about an hour to complete, and you need your TV to remain turned off. The pixel refresher will begin when you turn off your TV. So you should only do this if you notice some problems or some issues with your TV, like you see some spots on the TV, okay, then you might want to do that. Or if you see a retention on your screen, this is the good way to do it. So if you see some spots on your TV, like some yellow spots, or if you see some retention, like this logo where it says, foxnews.com, if you see that, then the best thing to do is use this pixel refresher. But you only use this when it's necessary. You don't do this if it's not necessary, okay? So you don't want to do it now because there's no reason for you to be doing it now. Okay, so keep your logo lumens adjustments at high. Keep it at high. Keep your screen shift turned on. Keep your energy savings at medium. Okay? You can also use this if you want the eye comfort mode. This option will reduce the color temperature automatically to adjust the eye strain. But this is really for your eyes. This has nothing to do with you preventing that burn-in or the retention. This is just for those of you who don't like that cold blue tone of color. What this basically does, it turns it to a warm tone of color. Okay? So keep the energy savings at medium. Make sure that your OLED light, it's at 80. That your contrast, it's at 85. Let's go down to some more expert controls. Turn off dynamic contrast. You want to turn this off. Why? Well, guys, remember, we're not watching HDR. we're not watching HDR content. We're watching cable. We're watching news, sports. Okay, turn that sucker off. You don't need it. Remember, we're trying to reduce as much as we can. What we're basically doing here, we're taking as much of precaution as we can to keep away from that potential risk of retention. Okay? Burn-in, it's something that's almost unfixable. It's really, once you get the burn-in, that's it. Your OLED panel is bye-bye. Retention, if it's not permanent retention, use the pixel refresher to refresh it. Do that whole thing for 1 hour. Some people say turn the TV off and on. Trust me, you don't want to do that. Use the pixel refresher. Let the pixel refresher do its job for 1 hour, and then you're good to go. So keep your dynamic contrast off. Keep that sucker off. Keep your resolution at low. Color gamut aromatic. But this is the most important part. Your dynamic contrast at off. Now you have a contrast at 85. Now you have a OLED light at 80. And now you have dynamic contrast turned off. And you also have your energy savings set to medium. All right? And that's pretty. Those are the precautions that I take. These are the precautions that I take. And as you can see, there's nothing wrong with the picture quality. Picture quality still looks great. You still got a great contrast ratio because you have OLED panel. And OLED panel has the best contrast ratio. So you still have a great picture quality. Okay? And as you can see, it looks great. Now, here's the question everybody wants to ask. How long should you watch the news channel? Well, first of all, man, you shouldn't watch news channel 24/7. You know, you see it for a little bit and that's it, because they're going to be repeating the same thing. Okay? They're going to be repeating the same news over and over and over, the same segments, the same guests, the same TV shows. They're going to be repeating it 24/7. Once you see it once, you're good to go. I mean, I can't really see you watching news channel 24/7. Why would you want to watch news channel 24/7? I never watch news channel 24/7. I only see it for a little bit, see what's going on, etc., and that's it, and then I'm good to go. I mean, I don't watch this 24/7. I mean, you shouldn't be watching this 24/7. All right? Now, let's I don't know if is there something else? I'm trying to figure out, is there something else I'm missing out here, that some tips that I want to show you. Now, what else can you do? Well, when you go to a general settings on the OLED, there's another option which I call standby mode. This is called the standby light. This is something that if you are not using, if I pause this image, if I pause this live TV, and I am not watching it and it's paused, well, this option right here where it says standby light, it's gonna come in handy. Let's say you have a phone call and you're talking to somebody and you press pause, right? And you got in a heated conversation, you got totally sidetracked and you forget, and you're talking to somebody on your phone and you totally forget about the TV, right? You totally forget about your OLED, and you leave and you forgot, to press play. You left it on a pause. And you don't have this standby light turned on. What's going to happen is that paused image will stay like that as long as you don't turn it off. So when you have this standby light mode on, you don't have to worry about whether or not you left the live TV paused, or you left your movie that you were watching on Blu-ray paused. You don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to turn off by itself. If there's no imagery, if there's nothing moving, this standby light will go ahead and will turn on by itself, and it's going to dim down your television in standby mode. Everything will be in a standby mode. You will see some stuff in the background, some floating particles and whatnot. it will be in a standby mode. That's another good way for you to reduce a potential retention. You go to the general and you click here where it says standby light. Now power saving mode, you want to use the power saving mode. Now this is the this is the HDD power saving mode. I already have my power saving mode turned on. Okay, it is already turned on. All right, so let's go through this again. Let's recap this and let's get this through again. Remember, retention on your OLED, it's when a static image it's being paused, or when a static image it's looping over and over and over again with the same individual, with the same figure, and it's looping constantly. That's the one way of you getting that retention on the screen. So how do you prevent that? Well, as I said earlier, make sure that your OLED light is set to 80. You can go to 70, but I keep it at 80. I think 80 it's a sweet spot. Contrast at 85. I've been using it with 80 and 85 for 6 months, and I haven't had any issues. That's the couple of things you can do. Another thing you can do besides the OLED light and the contrast, it's obviously your energy savings. Keep your energy savings at medium. That's another way of doing it, keeping it at medium. That's number 3, step number 3. And of course, you want to keep the screen shift turned on and your logo lumens adjustments set to high, because this is going to prevent that logo lumens right there that says CNN Live from being totally imprinted to this OLED panel. All right, make sure you set this to high. Pixel refresher, you only use this when you have that retention, when you see that you have some implementations, when you have something embedded, something enclaved into your TV. If you don't see any spots or anything, if you don't see any retention where you see that logo being there, then you don't need to use the pixel refresher. You only do that when you really have to, when it's necessary for you to do it. So that's the 4 steps right there. And another step you'll have to do, obviously, is the dynamic contrast. You want to turn off your dynamic contrast. So you want to go to your additional settings. Hold on, my bad. I already did that. Got to go down here where it says picture options. Expert controls. I'm sorry, expert controls. Under the expert controls, this is the last step that you need to take. Turn off dynamic contrast off. Turn it off. Okay. Now you don't have any blasting light coming through the OLED emitting diodes. Now you don't have any contrast coming in through the dynamic, through the emitting organic light diodes. You don't have any of that stuff. You don't have any blasting contrast, white bright levels, coming in from the organic light emitting diodes. Now everything it's toned down. Everything it's toned down. And on top of that, you also have your energy saving set to medium. So it's even more dimmed down. And it looks great. And like I said, I don't have any problem watching like this. Guys, remember, it's not you're not watching HDR. HDR, you only watch it for a couple of hours. HDR games, you can play HDR games with the OLED light and contrast set to maximum. All you have to do is just don't pause the image. Keep playing. and you're gonna be fine. I've been playing Days Gone on my OLED for 8 hours every day, and I haven't had any issues. As long as you don't leave any paused imagery or any static imagery. Keep that standby light on, so that way your TV will go into a standby mode. As you can see, the picture looks great. No issues, no problem. Everything works great. Look how beautiful that picture looks. Okay? Now, the reason I'm showing you this, because I want you guys to understand, if you want to buy an OLED, you have to understand, first and foremost, what kind of a panel are you buying? You have to do some research, and you got to ask yourself, is OLED for me? The OLED panel, it's not for everyone. I'm not here trying to tell everybody, okay, the OLED, it's for everyone. You know, you should buy an OLED, you should run out there and buy an OLED. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying, if you're going to buy an OLED, you need to do some research. You need to educate yourself. You need to understand what you're getting into. You need to understand what you are buying. Okay? You have to have some understanding on what exactly are you buying. Okay? Is this the right TV for me? I cannot answer that question for you. I'm only here to give you some tips to show you what type of precautions you can take to avoid that unnecessary retention. Okay? I'm not saying that the retention and the burn-in doesn't exist. Of course. But it only exists if you purposely force it and if you're not careful. You know, that's why I say maybe the OLED is not for you. Maybe the OLED, it's not for you. But I don't know that, if it's for you or not for you, because I don't know how well do you take care of your equipment. How well do you take care of your TV? Maybe you are careless. Okay? So you have to ask yourself, and you have to be honest with yourself, is OLED for me? It's a different type of technology than LCD, LED backlit. People got to remember that. LCD, it's an ancient technology. It's old. This is a brand new technology. And it requires some understanding and some discipline to use it. It's not for everyone, but I use it because I like to have a beautiful picture quality when I'm watching my television. I like to have a beautiful picture quality when I'm watching my movies in HDR. I like to have a beautiful picture quality when I'm playing my video games. There's a reason why I have this OLED. But when I got it, I understood what I'm getting into. You also need to understand when you purchase this TV, what are you getting into? It is not for everyone, but if you're willing to understand the technology and what you need to do to keep your OLED healthy, then you need to do that. You need to understand that, and you need to do that research. You need to watch videos like mine, some others out there. Tech and Travel is another great guy from UK. You guys need to follow him. He's got a lot of great tips. Wayne Strudwick, Mr. Struders, you need to go check him out. He's got an OLED. He's been with the OLED for a long time, so he can give you some good tips on what to do. But remember, I cannot tell you what's the right TV for you. That's only you can do that. Only you can make that decision. What's the right TV for me? What type of TV should I use? Only you know that. I don't know that. Okay, so I hope that some of these tips here that I showed you, hopefully this helps you out a little bit. That's why I'm making this video. I'm making this video to help you guys out, to show you what I do. What precautions do I take when it comes to watching television? You know, if you're a type of person who likes peak brightness on your channels, then the OLED is not for you. You shouldn't be buying an OLED simply because you want that peak brightness. Peak brightness, that's why you have Samsung. That's why you have QLED. That's why you have Sony Z9D. All right? This is for different types of individuals. Individuals who like the clarity, who like the viewing angles, who want to watch this TV from all kinds of types of viewing angles, okay? You see, that's for whom this TV is. People who want different types of viewing angles. All right? So, it's important that people remember that. So, I hope that this video gives you some clarification, gives you some idea and what precautions to take to keep your OLED healthy. Okay, so go ahead, use these tips. I'm confident 100% if you use these tips that I just showed you here, I'm confident that the lifespan of your OLED is going to be much longer. Again, also keep in mind, it depends on how you use it as well. You know, if you're not careful, if you're like ignoring all these precautions that I gave you, then the lifespan of that OLED is not going to be that long. Okay, so I hope that some of you will take these tips and these precautions, and I hope this helps. That's it. And that's all I got for you guys as far as the OLED. You know, but no matter what I say here, people will always, some individuals will always have that fear of burning and fear of retention. I'm here to tell you that I've been using this TV like this for quite a long time now, and I still haven't had any issues. No problems. Even with my previous C7 and E6, I mean C6 and B6, I haven't had any issues. So there you go. Thank you for watching. Cheers.